At its core, Gunvolt is a pretty simple series. It's a spin on the classic Mega Man formula with a focus on score attack and speedrunning, making it a really easy game to come back to time and time again. Even with Gunvolt 2 being one of my favorite games of all time, I can't deny that there are some things about Gunvolt 1 that still make me come back to it. One of those things being what I believe to be the best level in the entire series. The level is simply titled Underworld. The level begins with GV arriving at a Sumeragi warehouse, having been given a job to scope out a facility found underneath the warehouse, which we get to by blowing a hole into the floor. Even the game takes a jab at this totally being the sneakiest possible way to get in. The facility is dark and quiet. This gives the level possibly the most unique gimmick in the entire franchise so far. With the facility being pitch black, you'll need to use your flash field to find your way through and use these different colored light switches that turn the room into a color corresponding with the switch. This also gives way to some pretty fun color matching puzzles throughout the level, as the light switches also turn on and off these colored lasers. The darkness also benefits from the enemies that are exclusive to this level. The main enemy type of the level is something that truly deserves to be focused on, as they're easily my favorite enemy type in the whole game. If you've paid attention throughout the footage playing in the background right now, you might have noticed these corpses on the floor. Once they start popping up, you'll notice that you need to hit a light switch to continue onward. But as soon as you turn the lights on, the corpses spring to life and attack you. These enemies are just referred to as zombies throughout the level, so I'll be referring to them by that name. The level houses two different types of zombies, ones that are on the ground and ones that hang from the ceiling. The zombies on the ground are low enough to the ground that your gun doesn't hit them, meaning that the tag and zap gameplay you've gotten used to throughout the game doesn't work the same way here. You'll need to adapt to the new circumstances or die trying, adding even more to the fear of the unknown the level has already been slowly creating within the player's mind. The zombies that hang from the ceiling are a different story. These guys hang from the ceiling with a rope and spew purple paint all over the place, and you have two different ways of taking them out. The way you take them out is by either landing a couple tags on them and taking them out the way you would any other enemy. Or you can just shoot the rope they're hanging from, making them fall to the floor, dying instantly. But in doing so, create a splat of purple paint on the screen for a short period of time, limiting the player's field of vision, once again adding to that fear of the unknown, since enemies can end up being right where the splat appears, making it so you can't see them before they attack. Now you might be asking yourself, where did these zombies come from? Well, to cover that, we have to take a look at the villain of the level. Near the end of the level, GV encounters a young woman down in the facility. The woman seems to clearly be scared, and GV, being the best, offers to help her find a way out. After walking for a bit, the woman has what seems to be a mental breakdown as she recognizes one of the rooms in the facility and bolts inside it as GV follows her in. In that room, he finds her to be one of the higher ranking members of Sumeragi, Elise. After revealing herself, Elise explains what happened in the facility. Elise was being experimented on at the facility, and one day she just decided that she was done with it. So she killed everyone there and used her Septima's power to reawaken their dead bodies, turning them into the zombies that you, the player, were killing just a couple seconds ago. This was a huge shock to me, because while yes, I was well aware that the zombies were most likely corpses that were brought back to life, the fact that this one person wiped out an entire facility full of people on her own made me immediately interested in her character, and made me believe that she's probably the most powerful high-ranking member of Sumeragi, apart from Nova, of course. To me, this only added to the horror of the situation, considering that GV is stuck in this underground facility with a woman who has these powers. And if she manages to kill GV, she'll get a Septima-powered zombie on her side, armed with arguably the most powerful Septima of all, GV's Azure Striker. With that kind of firepower on her side, I don't think it's a stretch to say that Elise could probably slowly take over the world by wiping out small groups of people and bringing them back as her lackeys one by one. This makes Elise an incredibly interesting villain and someone I wish we would have seen more of, and honestly, if she has those kinds of options and things that she could cause, I might have to retract that comment about her being weaker than Nova. And that's only the surface things about Elise. But this stuff goes even deeper. Let's start with the fact that there are two of her. Part of her Septima is that she has multiple bodies. This is another interesting aspect of Elise, as she is the only character in the game whose Septima is an extension of her personality. What do I mean by this? Elise is a representation of multiple personality disorder, which is left free completely with her Septima being able to make her personalities into their own beings. One awesome boss fight later and the level ends, and even though it is a pretty short level overall, I kept coming back to that level in my mind and thinking about all the details in that level that are not only just adding more to the level, but also giving material for theories about Elise. Think about it. We never get a full explanation of how many personalities she has. Now, granted, she does bring everyone back with a third personality and she still gets defeated, but that's only because Copen helps out. If he didn't jump in, the rematch between GV and Elise could have been going on until GV ran out of power. But that's not all. Where did the different Elise's bodies come from? Did her Septima create the bodies, or are the bodies just other corpses that she brought back and then upgraded with Sumeragi tech and then placed one of her personalities into that body? I know that multiple personality disorder doesn't work like that, you can't just switch between personalities at will, but who knows what her Septima is capable of? My last talking point has something to do with something Elise says during her explanation before her boss fight. Specifically how she had enough of the experiments and just snapped. Imagine what kind of experiments they could have been doing on her. Knowing what kind of group Sumeragi is, they'd probably jump at the idea of being able to do as many experiments as they want, with the fact that even if they went too far and killed her, she could just bring herself back. Sumeragi probably beat down on this poor girl with different kinds of weapons, maybe tested different chemicals on her, and probably even tested their own Septima's powers on her. I mean, just think about it. The dominant and bossy Elise is clearly the one who's supposed to be in charge. So, what if her other personalities came around during those tests? What if she was beaten down to the point where the dominant Elise first turned into a person who would apologize for simply existing, and then become a person who's literally insane? These kinds of things are never brought up in the game, but thinking about those possibilities makes my skin crawl just from the idea. The fact that inside that facility Elise probably went through bigger hell than any other character in the whole franchise, to the point that she snapped and became a sociopath, is more terrifying than anything else this franchise has ever come up with. And that is exactly why I think that this is not only the best level in the first game, but also an amazing and surprising horror level.